is the Bonita Beach Road Visioning Study, and this is our first public workshop. The city has contracted with Tool Design Group to conduct a study for the Bonita Beach Road corridor. The study begins on the most western boundary from the intersection of Hickory Boulevard and Bonita Beach Road, and it ends heading eastwardly all the way to the end of the city-county maintained road. So it does go past Bonita Grande. We are very interested in placemaking for Bonita Beach Road, beautification for Bonita Beach Road, and how that meshes with future land uses as well, and making a place in a sense as we are. We've been known as Gateway to the Gulf. We're one of the major entryways to the beach and to the Gulf access, as well as maintaining our small town charm and big bright future. So these all are important assets to our city council, and these are some of the reasons why they went and had a request for proposals, a bid process, where Tool Design Group was selected to help us through this process. I did want to start off with a couple quick housekeeping. Just make sure that you've all signed the sign-in sheet in the back and that you have a copy of our agenda for this evening. We will also be having another public workshop on Thursday evening, and that will be from 6 to 7:30 as well, and you are all welcome to attend as well. There will be a different format for that workshop, and they'll be still having public input. There's also opportunities for additional one-on-one time with the consultants. They'll be having office hours on this Tuesday and this Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. here in this room as well. I am going to introduce Ian Lockwood with Tool Design Group to come forward. He's going to introduce his team. But right before I start, I did want to let you know that we do have a council member in the room, Councilman Mike Gibson. And also I think we have a tree advisory board member in here as well. So appreciate you being here, and we will let you know is that any items that were to be voted on in the future, they would abide by the sunshine rules, so they can participate as single members at tables, but they wouldn't be voicing louder opinions until they'll probably reserve those comments so that they can be recorded. We also have an LPA member here as well. So
I'm going to introduce the team in a minute and introduce the project. I'll go over the schedule and what we're doing. We'll try and provide you enough background so we can get some really good input today. We're going to be doing some exercises at the end together, and I think by the end of the process we'll be in a good place, and I'll explain all of these things as we go along. So here are the three firms that are on the team. I'm with Tool Design Group, and we have David Jones and Associates and Plan Active Studio. And here are the people from those firms. I'm Ian Lockwood. I'm a professional engineer. I've been designing streets for about 30 years now. I have a couple degrees in engineering, and I've worked for a city. I used to be the head of transportation for the city of West Palm Beach, and for the last 15 or 20 years I've been in the consulting business, building complete streets around the country. With me is Cindy Zerger. She's a landscape architect and planner. She's the lady who coined the term, what do you call it, path as place. And it's a doctrine that our firm follows. It's our brand. We think of paths, streets, boulevards, avenues, sidewalks. We think of them as places. We think Bonita Beach Road ought to let people know what the city is like, what the community is like. It should share your values. So that's very important to us. That's our firm's brand. I think that's probably one of the reasons that we got hired, is because we believe this street should reflect the values of the community in its design. For its businesses, it's for its residents, for the people walking, that kind of thing. So we want to make sure that whatever we come up with together as a vision is actually implementable, that we can actually get it done feasibly. And then Tara Salmeri, she's a planner with Plan Active Studio. She is an expert in planning and form-based code, and the idea is that the values that we express together today, she'll help put into the rules of the city, so that when something gets built, it expresses the community's values in that built form. There's a lot of folks in a lot of places where we work where they say, we don't want anything to change. But the trouble is that what that means is that all the planning regulations that you have in place will inform the future and that may not be consistent with what you want. And what we're going to try and do is listen very closely to what you would like to see happen along the road, along the sides and along the road itself, and adjust the planning so that it makes what we want as a community legal and conforming, and what we don't like, it discourages it. So what we want to do is align the design and the planning so that as a community we get what we want as an outcome. Does that make sense? So that's kind of the group, and that's why we're all here. Our firm, we're mostly engineers. We do a lot of engineering. We do a lot of construction drawings, that kind of thing. We also plan, and we're landscape architects, and we're also authors. We do a lot of cutting-edge projects around the country. So we're authoring right now what's called the AASHTO Bike Guide. So for all the departments of transportation around the country, we're writing the rules about how to design separated bike facilities and that kind of thing. We have a real niche nationally for making comfortable streets for people to walk on and to bike on. We also wrote the Boston Complete Streets Guide. It's probably the best guide in the country right now for complete streets. And what we mean by complete streets is streets where you can drive on, walk on, ride your bike or take transit, and be comfortable in your environment. Now, we were out today on the street, and those cyclists we saw, there was quite a few of them, but they weren't comfortable, I would say. They weren't comfortable at all, especially the one I almost hit with the minivan. You know, the street's just not designed for walking and cycling, as you probably know if you've tried to do either activity. So we're very good at those kind of complete streets projects. And there's all kinds of other things that we're good at. I won't go into that, but it's basically to make streets nice for the community where they're in. So just to start off, I'm going to ask Cindy to come up, and we took a tour today with some of the city staff. So we know a little bit about the street right now. We don't know the street very well. We know our craft really well, but you know the street really well. So what we want to do is learn from you so that we can help you design a really cool street that meets your needs and desires. And Cindy's going to go through some of our first impressions with you.
All right, so, you know, when we talked with the city staff this morning, we heard loud and clear that this is an important part of Bonita Springs here. It's important because it connects people to the historic downtown. It also connects people to the beach area, and seeing it as really an important gateway and approaching the design from that lens. We heard loud and clear. Great direction. It's really fun to actually go around the city with some of the staff as well and talk about some of the challenges and the opportunities. Typical cross-section. I'm not going to go in any particular order because I took the photos but kind of pulled them into the PowerPoint late this afternoon. So different type of a cross-section throughout. We see in some areas 4 lanes. There is sidewalks in most of the areas, if not all, but they're not necessarily the most comfortable. We saw people out there. Sometimes the sidewalk is set right next to the travel lanes, which is not a very comfortable feeling. As a pedestrian. Nice median here to deal with some of the stormwater. We know that that's an important part of this road and this corridor, that it needs to manage stormwater appropriately. In some areas, you know, there's big barriers to crossing. Even though we do have a nice, actually wide shared use path on the right of that image, the I-75 interchange feels like a pretty big barrier mentally and also physically to get through there. Some of the ramps are really, the slope is challenging, so if you're in a wheelchair or a mobility device, that might be really hard and challenging to get across there. Again, here's that trail in a different context. Nice to have it, I have to say. It's great to see, but we can do a little bit better if we think about it as a place, as making this an important place. Again, some other images. We didn't get to see the whole corridor because of our timing this afternoon. So another example, I think there are some great areas where you're doing some great landscaping, but perhaps we need to think about how we flip where the landscape buffer is in comparison to where the sidewalks are. And you have people out there walking and biking. Thankfully, Ian did not hit a cyclist today, but it was close. It was very close. I was coming out of an driveway. And knowing that sightlines sometimes in those areas were a little challenging. You have people trying to run, or at least run across the street. So again, accommodating a lot of these different uses along the streets. Yeah, it's a very brave man. I think he was going to come behind and cross over to the other sidewalk here. But mid-block crossings sometimes are a challenge, or if you have such distances between your crossing opportunities, it's challenging. Again, some other people biking along the corridor. We saw this a lot. We saw them often biking opposite the flow of traffic, and we heard from city staff that that's actually something that they intentionally do because they want to know if they're going to get hit. They see the vehicle. So typically, cycling, we actually typically travel with the flow of traffic or the vehicles. Some areas, you have some nice architecture out on this corridor. It's not all bad. You have some ideas here started, and I think it sounds like you're redeveloping in some different areas. So can we take some cues from what's existing that's nice out there? And then, as he had mentioned, we really do approach our ideas and developing corridors, designing corridors from this path as place approach. And that is about any path, be it a street, a road, a trail, can be designed through its details, when we think about the details, when we think about the cross-section, to really be as memorable as a place. It becomes a place unto itself. And that's what we'd love to see happen here. So some opportunities we see are some of the intersections and dealing with those in a way that treats them so you know you've arrived. There can be an arrival sequence to this process. So these are just some examples of where we see some opportunities to develop a little bit more memorable experiences in places, maybe plaza spaces as well.
I want to talk a little bit about walkability and mobility for a moment. When you think about a city, you're 15 years old now, I think, as a city. The canary in the mine for a city is the pedestrian. And so whenever we go to a city, we look to see how the pedestrians are accommodated. And if they're not well accommodated, it's either a land use planning problem or a transportation planning problem, or both. And so I think it's probably both here on Bonita Beach Road. And so we'd like to address those things so that people can walk comfortably in your city. So this is the probability of getting killed in different countries. So 12 people out of every 100,000 people in the United States gets killed annually on our streets. We have probably the worst safety record in the developed world. But not to be undone, Florida is #1 in terms of the state. So we kill and injure more people in Florida on our streets than in any other state. And so there's the top, there's the 50 biggest metropolitan areas, and the top 4 locations are all in Florida. It doesn't reflect the smaller cities, but just the larger areas. And I think part of the issue is because our cities, particularly the southern, these are the bottom 25 in terms of safety, and those are the top 25. I think our cities are more dangerous in general because our cities developed much later than the northern cities. And they developed when walking was far more common. And when our cities developed, we were mostly driving. And so our cities are inherently more car-oriented and less safe for pedestrians. But we're finding that a lot of cities want to change that. And the staff are saying there's a lot of people here that would like to retrofit your city to help people walk more and bike more and that sort of thing. So that's a good trend. Cities used to be all about walking. The car was, what's the car, 110 years old? So before that, you used to walk to the trolley, you walk downtown, or wherever you were walking, you would walk. It's interesting, it's one of the first things we want our kids to do and our grandchildren to do is to walk. It's a big, exciting thing. And it's the last thing we want to give up in our lives. But then when we can walk, that whole middle zone, we go and build cities where we can't walk. And so this is about making the city inclusive of all types of people, including pedestrians. Which leads to the idea of mobility. And mobility used to be the movement of people and goods. That's what my profession used to think about mobility. And the more, the faster, and the bigger the numbers, the better. And so you can see that reflected out on Bonita Beach Road right now, that in the past it was all about how do I get the cars to the interstate as fast as I can. And when you think about it, you know, this is a beach-oriented community. It has kind of a resort kind of feel to it. People want to retire, slow down, relax. You know, there's a lot of adjectives that go with this city that don't go with the design of that road. You know, that road, it looks like you want to get, you know, a long way quickly. I could see the interstate being like that, but this is part of your community. And its design kind of conforms to an old idea of mobility. Mobility today, there's a lot of cities who are thinking it's the population's capabilities and strategies to move in order to access what they need to live within the city. I just want to talk a little bit about this new definition of mobility. And starting with the populations, and notice it's apostrophe, or it's not apostrophe S, it's S apostrophe. And that's because there's not just one type of person in this city. There's all sorts of different types of people who live here. And there's young folks, there's elderly folks, there's handicapped folks, there's all kinds of different people with different mobility needs. And we want to be inclusive of those folks. And the other thing is that when we move in the city, it's purposeful. There's a reason why we're moving. We're either going to the beach, we're going to the store, we're going to church, we're doing something. And here are the things that we do. This is what most people, this is their percentage of their trips. So 20% is about shopping, 24% is family and personal, 8% or 9% is for church. Only 20% of our trips have to do with going to work. And the idea is that we need to be able to accommodate these trips, you know, within the city, you know, by various modes. This is this cartoon is about land use. A low mixed use and density reduced my average weekend trip length by about 85%. So that guy's got it all figured out, doesn't he? He's got everything he needs within about 3 feet. So on the weekend, he doesn't have to move very far. So the same thing is the same with cities. If you could get your grocery store, your church, your school, whatever you need close at hand, you don't have to go very far, and you meet all your mobility needs without creating large traffic jams. So from a land use planning perspective, you can make a big difference. I remember a guy once told me the best transportation plan for a city is a good land use plan, because you provide what people need close at hand. This is your Complete Streets Ordinance. Complete Streets has only been around since 2005. Barbara McCann, who coined the term Complete Streets, actually wrote her book in our offices in DC. I helped her define what Complete Streets was, and it's about making streets comfortable for all the different people who use the streets, and it's a pretty simple concept. Now, you've quoted 4 books in your ordinance about how to make complete streets, and we helped write 2 of those books, and we had a big influence on the 3rd. So we've deeply invested in your value sets to do complete streets. And in a nutshell, complete streets is about comfortably accommodating the buses, the cars, the trucks. Our professor's pretty good at that. What we're getting better at is accommodating the pedestrians and the bikes. And how do you change the corridor to be more inclusive like that? And increasingly, we're learning about, especially on arterials, how to make them business friendly. A lot of your economy is along that street. A lot of your tax base is along that street. How do you make the street nurturing to help the businesses succeed? How do they get the access they need? That kind of thing. So the street has lots of different roles, and the street needs to support all of those different uses. The street's just not one for one purpose. The street is definitely not just to get to I-75 and back. It's for all of these things. Here are the traffic volumes on the street. Now, when we were on our tour today, it felt so busy and felt so hostile on that street. And your cycle lengths, which means when you get a green light, by the time everyone has a turn and you get another green light, that's called the cycle length. It's probably 2 or 3 minutes at those signals. So if you get caught at a red light, you might as well have lunch, and then the next green light will come on and you'll go. It's a long time. So what it does is it bunches everybody up into what we call platoons. And so this platoon is struggling down the road. So you're always in this big group of people because the signals bunch you up in these big groups. But there's what, 50,000 cars on Tamiami Trail, and there's never more than 30,000 cars on Bonita Beach. So on a daily basis, it's not a giant number, but it sure feels like that when you're stuck at those traffic signals and you're waiting a cycle or two or three sometimes in the peak hour during season. And then this is probably, of all the intersections, there's trouble at some of the main intersections, but this one at Tamiami Trail is probably the most difficult of all the intersections. Would you agree with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you take an X-ray, you know, if you go to the doctor that X-ray your skeleton, we do the same thing with the city. We X-ray the streets. When you look at the bones of the city, there's a severe what we call lack of parallel network. There's actually only one way to get places, north, south, or east, west, and it's all through this one intersection. If you were to go to most older cities, there'd be 10 ways to go this way and 10 ways to go that way. And if each of those 10 ways had 2 lanes, you've got 20 lanes in each direction. You've got, what, 4 and 8 or something like that? So no wonder that intersection is getting all jammed up, because it's taking all the local traffic, all the long distance traffic, all the beach traffic, everything through that one spot. Now this is a generous X-ray. If we removed the parts that don't contribute to any connectivity, it looks like that. So it's even more sparse than you would think, because some of the streets actually don't go anywhere, just to people's houses. They don't connect anything. So we're putting an awful lot of stress on that one spot. So one of the obvious strategies to us is, well, there's a few strategies. The one that we like is adding some more network in this area, so that you have choices, especially if there's a crash or something, that you have different ways to get around, especially for the locals to get to shopping and so forth. The other way is to keep expanding the roads, but then of course that just makes the barriers even bigger. And do you really think that you're going to beat congestion? Like if you added 2 more lanes to either of those streets, it's just going to fill up again, and you just get 12 lanes of congestion instead of 8, that kind of thing. And then another way to address it is to do the grade separated interchanges, and the DOT was talking about that a few years ago, and you guys intelligently stopped that. There's that way of approaching it. And then there's of course do nothing, which is probably not a good option either. So the idea here is to collectively to think about our values, what's important to us, and help shape this area so that we can progress positively in a positive direction. So here's the exercise, at the beginning of the exercise. And we have 4 questions. We have a map on everybody's table. And so if you need to refer to something, you can look on the map. On all the tables, we also have a big, thick pen, so you can write notes that we can all see later instead of a real thin pen. And then we have some big white sheets. There should be 4 of them on every table. And we have 4 questions, and we'd like you to work with your neighbors answering those 4 questions. And does anybody know what time it is?
6:35.
Okay, we have good time. So we have to about 7:30. So maybe we could take like 25 minutes and then answer these 4 questions. And then what we'll do is we'll have every table will select a spokesperson from your table, and we're going to share what we come up with for the answering of these 4 questions. So, so if you're all by yourself, oh no, there's nobody by yourself. It'll be a pretty boring table. So the first question is, what values should influence the design? And what we mean by that is, what's important to you? Like when a visitor comes into your community, or when you come into your community, you get off the interstate, let's say, and you come in, the street says something about the community. What's important to you? Is just getting through quickly the most important thing? Is the aesthetic the important? Maybe a welcoming feeling? A lot of communities like a sense of enclosure, for kind of a nurturing feeling. You want folks to, like, adjectives like relax once they get off the interstate. When I first heard about this project, I was thinking about sort of decompression. You know, that's the kind of thing I think of when I think of, anytime I hear the word beach, I think about chilling out. Does that want to be reflected in the design of the community, in the street, the landscape, anything that you value that you want reflected for when you use the street, or your friends, or your visitors, or somebody from out of the country coming to the beach, whoever comes in, what are the values that are important to connote through your street design? That's what this is about. So maybe make them like 1 word or 2 word, like a list of them. So that makes sense to everybody, the values? And that's probably the most important of the 4 questions, by the way. The second question is, what do you actually like about the street that you'd like to see preserved? What's cool about it today that you don't want to see go away? Be creative. No, if there's something that you really like about it, let us know. And then what do you dislike about it? This is what everybody wants to jump into. They want to complain about something. I don't like this. This is your chance to list the things that you don't like about the street. Now, we were really interested in what you don't like about it qualitatively, like I don't like the barrier effect, or I don't like the fact that I have to walk 2 miles to get to a crossing, or whatever you don't like about the street. You can also point out the obvious things, like the congestion at Tamiami Trail, or that kind of thing as well. But I don't think our #1 job here is to play traffic engineer and try and solve the congestion issues. What we want to create is a great place. A place that is home, and a place that shows everybody who you are. So tell us what you don't like about the street. And then, what's missing in the street that you'd like to create? If you could create the best street ever for your community as you come in and get around, what would it be like? What's not there today that you'd like to see? And if we can answer those 4 questions the next 25 minutes or so, that will enable us to come up with some starter ideas to show you on Thursday that reflect those values and those ideas. One of the challenges is that I think people have sort of got their aha moment at a point in the history where a lot of the opportunities have already been precluded by development or bodies of water or some other obstacle. But that doesn't matter right now. What we want to know is if you think it's an issue, write it down and we'll explore it. But yeah, I think that's the only route. And it's the only route for emergencies, it's the only route for hurricane evacuation, it's the only route for so many things. But keep in mind too, though, about the hurricane evacuation thing. I used to be on the hurricane team for the city of West Palm Beach, and we had the same issue, but a mirror image, because we were on the other coast. And so all of our emergency routes led to I-95, and all of yours leads to I-75. And I think I-75 is now 6 lanes wide.
Yeah.
And Bonita Beach Road is 6 lanes. And luckily, Bonita Beach Road is the only road that leads to I-75. So you can evacuate, no one else will use it. No, that's not true. There's like 50 other roads that lead to I-75. All are probably 4 or 6 lanes. So I make the argument that it's not about speed to get to I-75. It's about car carrying capacity. We can move a lot of traffic at 20, 25 miles an hour during an emergency to get to what's going to be a very, very slow operating I-75. So just keep that in mind, that we can design the street to do anything we like. We just need to be cognizant that there is these multiple roles for the street because it's the only one.
We're not passing through because we have to.
You're coming to town.
Nobody going home. Anybody.
Yeah, welcome, warm.
And we're down by Bonita National, and our had to and stuff like that. And it's very nice.
Yeah, you know, whatever speed you post.
Road is the only place where you can get
north. They move this lane over here, another turn lane going south. They move over there. And right here, this is a huge problem off the road. Everybody coming off these houses, it's only 50 or 2 cars. Yeah, you have one here going into Arroyo, which takes everything up. If you add an extra lane here, going north, and then 3 lanes.
I'd like to see more pipes and course safety.
But it's going to create backups at the business.
Most of Bonita Beach Road looks like a blighted area.
Yes, exactly. I don't want to be impolite, but I'd like to see more upscale.
Put that under what you want to change.
It's not necessarily. I'm fine with the whole
Okay.
More tuned in to west of, where's the road narrow to 4 lanes? At Old 21.
Well, like here would be nice, you know, like where we're at. The sidewalks right on the road. There's no room for that bridge.
What do you like? Short wave? We've
already mentioned we dislike how it's plain in character, outdated, unmaintained. We dislike the connectivity currently that it does not have, especially when you get off of I-75, immediately really not understanding that there's even a beach a few miles away, as that gentleman was saying. The identity, there's none there, and safety. And then what's missing, still same things that came up: visibility, identity, aesthetics, wayfinding, pedestrian mobility, back to aesthetics, landscaping, architecture, identifiable public transit. Really, there's nothing that seems to identify locations where people in the community can just simply hop on a bus or a train or something to go to the beach. Connection from I-75 to the beach character, the beach or a town trail, something that is, you know, many of these towns have trails, and this is a perfect corridor to have something like that. Consistent lighting, and again, safety. So
we were aesthetics, big on aesthetics, landscaping and streetscape. In terms of what do you wish to preserve, oh, sorry, we did have more values, that's right. Move traffic, bicycle and pedestrian mobility, and safety, including alignment of the turning lanes. Appropriate signage, I think the word wayfaring was used over there. In terms of what do we like and wish to preserve, Dolly's, the Center for the Arts, the Comedy Club, the church landscaping, residential communities, and the Center for Bonita Springs were examples. There wasn't much about the public roadway that we wanted to preserve. Dislikes, billboards, barren walls, lack of landscaping, it's boring, anywhere USA, it's an auto sewer, and it's not pedestrian or bike friendly. In terms of what's missing that you would like to see created, think about, consider roundabouts like Sarasota has, where they've kept, they're keeping 41 as 2 lanes, and it's got a lot more traffic than this road does, and they're using roundabouts to get the traffic through. A beautiful beach park, landscaping, practical ways to the beach. One idea was a trolley or light rail. That's it.
So our number 1 was safety for all modes. So safety is a big issue for all modes, obviously. And also what we value, beautification that does not interfere with the vision of turning movements. There's a lot of landscape attempts where we're concerned about safety. Turning movements are blocked from a visual standpoint. What else we want to preserve is we want to have a parkway concept like Naples, where you get on some heavily traveled streets, but you're happy to be there because it's beautiful. Item 2, what we'd like to preserve is the gateway concept to the beach. We think that it needs to have a theme, an identity. We like the easy access to Barefoot Beach and actually the shore where Docks is. That's a comfortable setting, we thought. Item 3, what do we dislike? We dislike the traffic signal timing. We think that that can be improved. From 41 to the beach, there's too many driveways and conflicts for pedestrians and cyclists. Be a real challenge for you to reduce that, but at any rate, we threw that out. And we need new landscaping throughout. I mean, we talked about the lousy landscaping, and I think you agree. So what's missing? What's missing is maintenance. Whatever's there isn't well maintained, even out by City Hall here. We think that maintenance, when you compare us to Pelican Bay or what's going on in Estero in some places, Naples, the corridor doesn't have any consistent maintenance. The medians aren't well maintained. They're mowed, but they're not beautiful. Irrigation, we speculated that there's not a lot of irrigation, so we don't know the answer to that. And we'd like to see a change where there's a feeling of a new identity, a new concept that would really make a statement for Bonita Beach Road and for Bonita Springs.
Gateway to the Gulf, an old Florida design is what we'd like. 2, preserve the oak trees, short way to the Gulf, maybe an actual park on the beach road, no land is being preserved. 3 is slower the speed, more of a park-like setting. And then, better turn lanes going north up to to Estero. Coming off the beach is a huge nightmare. Getting out of the beach is easy. Coming off is, a problem that we see just from our business aspect. Another turn lane heading north. Keep the 2 lanes coming off of Beach Road going on to 41 North, and expand a Royals turn lane, because that clogs everything up there, and it just makes a nightmare. Everybody turns north going on. They're all going to Estero. More beautification is our number 4. In the summertime when we have rainy season, it looks great. Grass is green. Now it looks like a damn desert. So could be better from that aspect. And that's what we came up with. Thank you.
A lot of this has been already said, but we'll say it again. The values, we want it to be inviting, welcoming. We want to have beautiful, lush landscaping in the medians, and of course improvements on the sides. But safety was the other big one for everyone's mobility. We'd like to have the businesses upgrade their street appearance and have more plantings and things in front of their places of business, and accessible, have them be accessible. And what we want, number 2, what we want to preserve is, again, ease of access to Bonita Beach Road and to all the places along the street. We definitely, since 3 of us here are from Spanish Wells, we want to keep the stoplight at Spanish Wells. And we obviously want to preserve that access to the beach because it is the gateway to the beach. And I do remember that sign, so I always thought it was kind of neat. What do you dislike and want to change? We would like to see if it's possible for Bonita Beach Road to not become, or it already is, but to have it stop being the pathway to Fort Myers Beach. There's an awful lot of traffic going from here up to Fort Myers Beach that way because 41 is so crowded. Tacky public signage, like is along Livingston, there at the corner of Livingston, there's some big billboards that actually I don't even know if they're relevant right now, but because they've been there so long. And the big area by Bonita Beach Road, on Bonita Beach Road by the dog track, that is just kind of really unattractive. So I don't know who owns it. Probably the dog track does, or the city owns it along the sidewalk. But that area's got to be developed more. What is missing that you would like to see? We'd definitely like to see roundabouts. We had that before you said it. On, especially Old 41, where it's, because people come off the freeway and go down Bonita Beach Road, and then they go down Old 41 to the intersection. I can't think of the street, what?
Bill,
Huh?
down by Bill.
No, down right before Wiggins Pass, where it connects. So, I mean, it's, you can, and you can't even go there at 8 o'clock in the morning, you know?
The south end of Old.
The south end of Old 41, yeah. But roundabouts, they do have them, I don't know if you know, up behind Coconut and on Williams Road, I think it is. So, and I'm familiar with them. I think they're just great. I mean, my brother lived in England for a while, and I thought they were just great. And also, Livingston and Imperial. I think that's got so many drugstores, and there is a new building going up, but then there's the cemetery, which we can't do much about. It's really looking quite nice now. That, I think, would be good for a roundabout also, because Livingston is getting used more and more north-south, and then there's people coming from the freeway who want to go south, and I think we think that a roundabout would be good there.
In terms of the values, obviously these are all influenced by seasonal, the impact of more people being here and using that road. But in terms of our values to influence design, to be the safety, both for bikes, for people, and for speed control. The aesthetics, you know, if you take a look at Livingston Road, what they've done, obviously it's more space, but it's quality stuff that was planted and well maintained. That's a nice standard to shoot for, comparable landscaping. The business egress and access. One of the things that I've found since we've been down here, and they added on a new Publix, is I can't find a space. Now, when you allow more cars to come down and try to access those parking lots, and the space gets constipated, it's going to create backup to the roads. So that's a concern, the ability of the parking lots for the businesses to accommodate the off-road traffic. The sidewalks, building them adequate for biking. There's a lot of folks coming down from up on Old 41, and a lot of them use bikes, and having the ability to ride on that, maybe two bikes at a time, is a value. Let's see, I think I covered the values.
Switch it over.
Some of the things we'd like to preserve, the accessibility to the businesses. Sometimes, I don't know, there is congestion right now getting in at times. And I don't know how you accommodate that without making the access bigger or larger to them, and that'll, I know, will be a hurdle. And maintain the character of what we feel now. There is a certain amount of character in the Bonita Beach Road area. We have the Old 41 and character of that, and you don't want to have trucks coming down through various directions, so you want to keep the character in control. What do we dislike? The congestion. Churches on Sunday is one issue, and they can't help it. But the timing of it, it's a fairly large parish, and it has a big influence on slowing down the traffic on Bonita Beach Road, going both directions, because some cars, when they come out, will one way, the other go the other. So controlling that and managing that is something that needs to be considered. It's awkward entering Bonita Beach Road from I-75 going north.
Entering ice,
Going into Bonita Beach Road.
From the north?
Well, yeah, if you come up, you have to go around, and it's sometimes very difficult to get around that corner, because cars are coming around, coming from the inside and coming from the outside, and it can be dangerous.
When you're going north, going on to West Bonita Beach Road, then the two lanes just sort of blend together. People just interfere with each other, and
Some people don't go wide enough.
yeah. some
Okay,
people don't
and it's, let's see, the intersections, 75, and smaller roads, better bike lanes.
So for
Those are
example,
just, what
yeah,
what
for
was that
example,
issue?
on the intersection, when you're heading west on Bonita Beach Road, and all of a sudden your lane disappears because you've got to take a left onto Old 41. You know, it's sort of confusing, and it's not real good signage there. So it's a good concept maybe, but needs a little bit of betterment for that.
Okay, where are we?
What's missing?
What's missing? Better aesthetics, again, access to parking at end of, in some respects, it's like a funnel. You can only put so much water in the funnel. And when we have more cars going to the beach, very often when we go to the beach now, it can't accommodate the traffic. The parking spots are all filled, so people either turn around and do a U-turn to get to the point of the beach, or they'll try to park their car in the condos across the street. There is that funnel effect. If you can't go down that road and park your car and get out of the car, they're going in circles. Let's see.
Light timing.
The light timing is an issue. The other thing that I was thinking about was the bridge itself. What happens to the bridge? If you have more lanes going to and over the bridge, is the width of that bridge going to expand to accommodate?
You're not talking about adding any lanes, right? No.
No?
We would never recommend that.
No.
Okay. All right. All right, I guess that's it.
Quality of life, for it to be a pleasure and stress-free to use the roadway, not only for driving, but for biking and walking. We thought that a value guiding the process should be a more uniform design along the roadway and a lot of effort to beautify the roadway and how it looks. We also all agreed that we came down to this area because of the friendliness of the design, and we felt embraced by the people, the atmosphere, and we wanted that to be continued in the design of the roadway, and then to keep it coastal with the small town beach feel that we love Bonita. Love about Bonita. And then we would like it to be a higher design like Naples, but something that we said that I loved was we want to lead that and not follow. We're not trying to emulate what Naples has done. We want to be better and kind of find our own path to be a beautiful community. What would we like to preserve? We feel like there's great access to restaurants. We mentioned Dolly's and some of the great places to go along Bonita Beach Road. There's a lot of destinations to get to. We thought the section west of 41 near Bonita or Barefoot Beach was very pretty as you get closer to the beach. We like some of the roadway swales and lake designs that have plantings in them and look attractive. We liked some of the nodes such as the flea market and the Greyhound track, and the table was split on this, but we thought more nodes like casinos might be fun to have on the roadway. And then we liked, lastly, that there were sidewalks. All the roadways do have sidewalks, and Bonita Beach Road has that infrastructure, but they're not great. So, but we want to certainly continue to have that kind of stuff. What do we dislike and what would we like to change? Congestion, not having parallel roads. We need more landscaping, and the landscaping is not well maintained, as everyone has kind of mentioned. We don't like, in terms of land use, some of the strip mall development that's occurred. We think a beautification of existing buildings is needed, not only new development that's beautiful, but help some of the older buildings be more attractive the way the city's done downtown. We don't like that the sidewalks and bike paths are so close to the street. There's no separation, and we'd love to see pathways like they have on Sanibel, where you have a lot of separation from the road, and that there's not a lot of shade on the sidewalks either. And we don't like the idea of crossing US 41 on Bonita Beach Road on bike or foot, or even in car most days. And then what would you like to see created? Some areas need more density from a land use standpoint. Mixed use, we mentioned Coconut Point as being a really nice kind of development. We would like to see more places like the Center for Arts created, outside cafes potentially along the street, more upscale shops, beautiful places, upgrading existing buildings, fountains, better sidewalks, better crosswalks that are better marked. We talked about roundabouts. We weren't totally in agreement on doing that, but we agreed that we need to slow the speeds down on the roadway and have better maintenance.
Thank you all for coming, and hopefully we'll see you later in the week. Thanks a lot. Thank you.